You're gonna need a bigger potion. So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Oh, welcome to this podcast review for October 12th, 2025, and I'm Jada Duran.
And I'm Brendan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is going to be an interesting one. Don't
Indeed.
change the dial. I promise you're going to want to listen to this. It's going to be
This
fun.
is going to be pulling grid.
Yeah. And, you know, because we have thoughts on this movie that we're about to get into,
Yeah.
we had to bring on a guest, one that I know is also very interested in this conversation. So joining us from the grid is the great wonder Meg. Meg, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited
Yeah.
to chat about, everything Tron Ares, the good and unfortunately the bad.
yeah. There's plenty
I
to be
feel like
said
there's
about that.
more emphasis on one side, I noticed.
yeah. We'll get to that. Let's first set the table here because I do think this context is going to matter quite a bit to this conversation. At least I say so for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Tron as a franchise. Maybe even more specifically, Tron Legacy. I want to start here. Meg, I will give you the floor before I give my glowing praise. What do you think about Tron as a franchise pre-Ares? We'll exclude that for now, but going into the film, where did you sit? Where was your excitement level?
Oh man, a little backstory about me. I saw Tron Legacy in theaters about my memory's going, but anywhere between about 8 to 12 times.
Oh my god!
When I was
awesome.
when I was in high school, I was just totally transfixed by the score, the visuals, even like the storyline was really great. So that was my introduction to Tron, and then I watched the first one, obviously after watching Legacy about a dozen times, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I thought it was pretty like an innovative story, innovative visuals, and my excitement for Ares was it was pretty high, honestly, even with people dogging on some of the trailers and even dogging on the plot. I was still pretty excited. So going in, I was just, and of course the Nine Inch Nails gets announced as doing the score. I still listen to the Tron Legacy soundtrack every day, so I was totally into the Nine Inch Nails score getting announced, and I was excited. So I have I'm pretty biased when it comes to the Tron franchise. It's very near and dear to my heart. But yeah, as much as I not really huge on Jared Leto, I was still pretty excited for Tron Ares.
Yeah, Tron is an interesting one for Disney because it was very much a cult hit in many ways. It's a franchise that people kind of found, and Tron Legacy, I feel like, is another example of that because it was one that started to garner more of a following in the years since it came out. And I think a lot of that is because at the time when Tron Legacy first came out, we didn't really know much about Legacy sequels yet, and we also didn't know much about Joseph Kosinski as a director. So there was really no frame of reference to determine whether or not Tron Legacy was really some type of artistic vision or a Disney product, but you really can see that it was genuinely an artistic vision when you look at Kosinski's body of work and how similar all his films actually are. And Tron Legacy is a great example of that. To have that be his first major film is pretty awesome. And that's why I often go back to Tron Legacy in particular. And I think, man, time has been really kind to that movie. I really think time has been very kind to Tron Legacy, and that movie really does kind of slap. I think that movie kind of slaps. And that first Tron, it's like I like the way Disney treated both of these two films thus far, because they knew that the original Tron was kind of this like small thing that garnered its own audience, and they treated it like this small thing. And Tron Legacy was almost treated the same way, and I kind of like that level of cult-like respect that Disney seemed to have for these films. We'll talk about whether or not they maintain that level of respect when it comes to Tron Ares in just a moment. But I like the way they treated them, at least at this point thus far. And both of those films, really intriguing. I always found them to be one of Disney's more intriguing properties.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit bummed that this franchise doesn't have more of a wider following. And I understand that the films themselves aren't full on masterpieces in the conventional sense.
Right.
But I think they're a lot of fun. And I think what's also interesting about those first two movies is how innovative they were. The first film incorporating computer graphics in the ways that it does. That was the first time we had ever seen anything like that back in the 80s. And with Tron Legacy, the way they incorporate that technology on Jeff Bridges' face, that's the first time we had ever seen anything like that at that time. Now, obviously, they've gone on to maybe not perfect, but it's certainly gotten a lot better since 2010. And that's maybe the one thing about Tron Legacy that is still a little wonky. I don't think those effects are quite there.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're all that distracting.
They're not. They fit that kind of world. If there's ever a movie where those imperfections almost kind of matter, it's a movie like Tron Legacy. It's not like some historical epic where they use this type of de-aging technology and it completely backfires. There's something about the wonkiness of it in Tron Legacy that almost adds to the, pun intended, legacy of a movie like that.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think it's all that distracting. I think it's effective for that movie. And again, I still give it bonus points for being the first of its kind.
Exactly.
So this franchise, maybe underratedly, I do think has, again, pun intended, maybe that'll be something that continues in this conversation, but certainly adds to the legacy and the lore surrounding these movies.
Yeah.
I like the first film, I think is a little bit more uneven, but again, I think it's still a really fun movie. It takes
very
risk
fun.
given its fantasy. And I think it's really clever for the most part. And then Legacy, I think, does such a great job of bringing that same innovative cleverness, but to the modern age. And if, you couple that with the incredible score by Daft Punk, which I talked about quite extensively on last week's main show for anyone that missed it. We
good music.
talked about our top 5 soundtracks and movies. That was in my top 5. I talked about that a lot, with the help of Brendan articulating some of it for me. But we had a great time with that discussion. Love that score. And I really dig what Legacy is going for on an emotional level and narratively speaking.
It's a
not
weird
necessarily
movie.
Yeah, it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but what I love about it is that it knows what it wants and then sticks to those convictions. And it's really, really good as far as channeling the ethos of Tron and its aesthetics and the diverting qualities you expect from going into the grid, but it maintains that emotional underbelly. And I watched it earlier this year, and I don't know, I'm certainly willing to admit this might be dad goggles speaking here, but that moment at the end of the film when Kevin calls out to Sam as he's about to leave there, I've never really looked at Tron Legacy through the prism of Midnight Special, but that's exactly what's going on there.
Does
Kevin
it also
has his
help?
Midnight Special moment.
Does it also help that Sam Flynn, your son, also being named Sam?
Probably. It certainly doesn't hurt.
You have a fortunate coincidence there.
For sure, but man, I love that edit. And there's something about it on this latest rewatch that I did, even though it was back in March. There's something about going back and seeing the film through that prism, and that edit when he calls out to him and you get those flashbacks as he reminisces, man, that I think is genuinely very good filmmaking.
It is.
And
it
totally
is. It's
killed me.
sincere. It also still looks awesome. Like how that movie has aged very well from a visual standpoint, I think is kind of impressive given how technologically driven it is. And so many movies that try to go for the same things have really started to showcase their imperfections and the seams in later years. But Tron Legacy, I think, holds up pretty well and also
Yeah.
ends on a very provocative note that
Yes.
all I'll say is
I have
this.
thoughts.
Yeah, I have thoughts as well, how that translates to Tron Ares.
Yeah, no, certainly we'll get. That's why I wanted to set the foundation here, because I really like that first Tron. I think Legacy rules. I think it is really, really good. Maybe still underratedly, I don't know. I know the film overall has garnered a cult following, as you noted, Brendan, but
Yeah.
as far as the wider universal appeal, well, if the box office of Ares is indicative, maybe it's not all the way there. I don't know, but I think there are other factors working against Ares that we can certainly get into in the conversation that I think is also affecting the box office. It certainly affects the film itself. There's no doubt about that. But I think Legacy is really, really great. And it's why I was excited for Ares, at least initially. Now, once we started to get the trailers and more information and the general vibe of where it was going to go, I started to have questions, lingering doubts, one could say. And it had nothing to do with the Jared Leto of it all. That's a whole other concern, a whole other argument that really had nothing to do with my dubiousness as far as Ares was concerned. But I still wanted to maintain hope, especially with Nine Inch Nails doing the soundtrack, which they released weeks in advance. Then I noted last week on the show as well that I did listen to that soundtrack before going into the film and really enjoyed it a lot. So I tried to maintain hope. I went into the showing and I did watch Ares with Sam.
Okay.
I did walk in trying to maintain some optimism.
As you should. As you should.
Maybe naively, but we'll talk about that now. As we transition to Tron Ares, this one is directed by Joachim Röning, and it stars the aforementioned Jared Leto, as well as Greta Lee, Evan Peters, Jodie Turner-Smith, Hassan Minaj, Gillian Anderson, Jeff Bridges, and others that come and go throughout the film. If you're not familiar with Tron Ares, a highly sophisticated program named Ares, who could have seen that coming, is sent from the digital world into the real world on a dangerous mission. All right, let's get into this. We'll start with you, Meg. What did you think about Tron Ares?
Yeah, I like Tron Ares, parts of Tron Ares, but I think the things that stick out to me the most on my first viewing, I've only seen it once, but on that first initial viewing is just how great the score was and how much that carried my thoughts more positively. And then on the drive home from the theater, I was thinking a little bit more deeper about the film and like the themes that it proposes, and I was just feeling pretty bummed out. I tried to go in like as unbiased as possible with like wanting like more Sam and Cora stuff and that story progressing. But I just felt like really disappointed after watching it. Like the score, the visuals are all great. They're always going to be great in a Tron movie. But I was just really looking for something more. The story was pretty boring to me. The pacing was really bad. The acting felt just pretty substandard. Other than, like Jodie Turner-Smith is the standout for me. Greta Lee is a standout for me. But I was really let down by like Evan Peters. His character feels very surface level bad guy. And I just feel like it takes this film way too long to say what it wants to say, like maybe even about AI and stuff. And I do not like what it says about AI or what it doesn't say about AI. And I was just leaving pretty disappointed. Like I still gave the movie like 3 stars because it's one of my favorite franchises, but other than that, I was just kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah, I feel like that's a common reaction to this movie is that it's a great visual experience, it's a great auditory experience, a great visual album of sorts, but just not a great movie. I feel like that's what most people seem to be saying about it. I hated this movie. I pretty much hated everything about this movie. It made me mad. Halfway through, I almost walked out. I almost walked out of this movie. I almost admitted defeat, thinking I can't talk about it. I just can't talk about this thing. I expect this from Disney for the most part, with, let's say, some of their other quote unquote IP, whether it be related to Marvel or many of their Star Wars related content, especially with regard to their live action Disney remakes that they constantly do. Many of these are driven by committees. They very much feel like they're driven by committees. And as much as I don't like that, we've come to expect that, right? With those kind of properties, that they're just governed by producers than they are artists. But with Tron, as we talked about with that first Tron from 1982 and Tron Legacy, this is a sort of a weird IP for Disney where they at least try to attempt some level of artistry. And I don't really see that here in Tron Ares. And I think it's just so unfortunate that they're taking one of their lesser known properties that was known for such artistic integrity and doing what they've been doing with pretty much every IP that they own. There are great visuals here. The visual effects are effective here, but they're not captured in an interesting way. And I think that's the bigger issue for me. It's the blocking and the editing of some of these sequences doesn't capture what could have been really visually effective here. The director here, Joachim Roning, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. When you look at his filmography, I sometimes wonder if he's even a real person. I really don't know if he's a real person. and again, like, I've come to expect.
Is he AI? Is he Ares?
He might be Ares.
He might be Ares in
real life.
Yeah.
He's a program. Well, and I think that's just so unfortunate because there's room to make something interesting with regard to a Tron movie that might be that might seemingly feel like it's made by some type of programming if they're trying to get really meta with that. But I think in this case, it's just a huge missed opportunity. And I think it's really unfortunate that for a property like this that Disney has that's not known for being made by committees, and that's how it feels, like, that's a bummer. That is a huge bummer to me. And it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And I was really upset by that.
All right, if you guys will indulge me, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here to begin.
I love it, JD.
Thought. So bear with me.
I'm so glad because I will also start ranting soon too. So
okay, good.
So
yours will be the introductory. Yours is the introductory rant.
Yeah. So after JD's done, I'll take
way here.
After JD's done, I'll take a back seat. Meg, you can jump right in after JD's done.
Okay, good.
Yes, I have to rant here because this is the biggest disappointment of the year by far. I also did not care for this at all. Now, to be fair, I do really love the sound design and the score here, especially in IMAX. Both are extremely palpable and felt. I do think visually it is compelling, especially when compared to other blockbusters these days. Even if you are right, Brendan, the blocking and some of the staging aren't fully crystallized. Yeah. But on its own terms, this is one of those movies where you'll be able to cherry pick screenshots. You can put them on a wall and it works great. However, the writing here is impressively inept. It is utterly baffling. The definition of a missed opportunity. And to fully articulate that, I have to get into Tron Legacy once again. And this will involve spoilers for Tron Legacy, so fair warning if you haven't seen Legacy. I imagine most of you watching, listening here are fans of Legacy, or at least have seen the film, but just a fair warning just in case. So we get to the end of Legacy, and I somewhat alluded to that moment earlier with, Kevin calling out to Sam as he and Quora are escaping the grid. So we get to that moment, and we get to the end of that film with Sam and Quora getting back to the real world. And that is vital, right? That final shot, the two of them, Quora especially, getting to the real world is vital because she is the last remaining ISO. Yeah. Something that was deeply important to Flynn as far as how she would be this medical, technological, and philosophical marvel that would completely change the world. That's how he articulated it.
Yeah.
And so as a result, he sacrifices himself at the end of that film, right? So that way she could get out and get to the real world. So Quora, seemingly having no impact over the last decade and a half, is quite the mystery. Quite the mystery. And we know
she exists.
She's a part of this world. The beginning of this film references her, and a couple of other times throughout, she and Sam are mentioned no less than 3 different times.
Yeah.
Why Quora is hiding is kind of an important question to ask here, because it makes no sense given her relationship to Flynn and Sam's reaction to his father's sacrifice. Avoiding the world would mean that Sam and Quora are actively undermining that sacrifice. Why on God's green earth would they do that? Why would they do that? Exploring that seems like a compelling place to start narratively for a movie. And again, I don't want to sound like CinemaSins, but this film trying to have its cake and eat it too is really dumb. I'm not sure how else to say it. It's also worth emphasizing and reiterating that you have to criticize the film for what it is, not what you would have wanted it to be. But in this case, this film, Ares, makes it quite clear that it is canonically recognizing the events of Legacy, which as a result renders the choices they make here incredibly vacuous and dumb. Really, really dumb. And also, let's be honest, the only appeal here is because Legacy garnered a cult following. Ares would not exist without it. So not pandering to that is a fundamentally flawed approach. I would have 100% been open-minded if they genuinely had a great idea removed from Legacy. Yeah. But they very much did not. Very, very much did not. Most of the ideas here are half-baked. Some of them just ripped right out of Legacy anyway. It is utterly baffling. It is straight up lazy. This was a production fully tailored to mind-numbing popcorn, let's just get people in the theaters, without ever assiduously thinking about why people like this franchise to begin with. There's absolutely none of that in this movie, and it blows my mind. It blows me away. Again, if you're either commit to being a sequel or commit to being a reboot, this pseudo sequel nonsense we get here, it undermines so much of why we are fans of this franchise to begin with, while giving us nothing new or interesting to make us care about the direction of where this is going.
I love Mad Beatty so much.
Such a dumb approach. Such a dumb approach. And again, like, I think a lot of this angst that's coming, it's born out of, I was looking forward to this. I want this franchise to do well. And again, we often talk about movies as sports. That's just the sports part of me also coming out. When I watch my Michigan Wolverines get blown out on Saturday, I'm having the exact same feelings. Like, I want you to win. Why aren't you doing the things that you should be doing to win?
It takes a lot for JD to say dumb. Like, it takes a lot for you to criticize a movie as dumb. Like, you
I try
ever
to
use
avoid
that
it.
word.
I rarely ever use that word, but that's the only thing that comes to mind here. Like, there was no thought put into this at all. And I like, for a franchise that doesn't have the reputation, or again, pun intended, the legacy of Spider-Man or Star Wars or hell, even Transformers. Like, it just doesn't have that kind of backing. Why are you running away from the fans that would have the most appeal? I don't get it.
Meg, you're
I I completely agree with the script just being basically a nothing burger of a movie. And within the script, the characterizations of basically every character is is just bad. There's so many characters in this movie that get about say like maybe even 3 full lines of dialogue, and you never really quite see them again. Like, what was his name? Cameron, he played the Joker in like DC show.
Oh yeah,
He
apparently he
he's a
trained for like
program,
5
and
months.
the only reason why you even know he's in the movie is because he takes his helmet off.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
it's ridiculous, and, so outside of the weak characterizations, there's only, like, Eve is, like, the only character in the film that you feel, like, an attachment towards at all, and even then, she just seems like a plot device to get this permanence code. She's not really given anything interesting about her other than, oh, she runs Encom now because her sister passed away, and you see, like, glimpses of, like, her life and whatnot. But it just seems like she is literally there just to get the permanence code, and then that's kind of it. Like, Ares has to continually come in and save her. It just blows my mind that they were like, "Oh, yeah, this is good enough." Especially after having a character like Sam Flynn in Tron Legacy, who's pretty layered. So
Yeah.
outside of those weak characterizations, I think my biggest frustration comes from the themes around AI, how programs coming into the real world, sure, it's scary to think that the destruction that AI can cause, like these big cities, but I think I'm just annoyed because AI is such an annoyance in our life already, that the film doesn't do anything to really talk about the real life implications of AI taking over, other than, oh, big cities are just crashing. I live in a place that has a ton of fresh water. I live in an area that has a ton of rural communities that lose their electricity and their water supplies because of AI. I think the film actively goes against anything bad it's saying about AI, because the end of the film, spoilers, I guess, the end of the film, Ares just gets to go off and do whatever, knowing that he could potentially be, you know, some horrible AI monster bot, just like Athena was and the rest of the programs. I think it sends a really bad message about humanizing these AI robot people, if you want to call them people, especially when Disney has Grok and a Tesla robot at the premiere of their movie. It makes no sense to me, and it really says nothing about AI other than we just need to basically bend over and accept AI, which I'm good. So I think those are my biggest frustrations. Is that other than what JD said, it's just there's like no care.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's
Sorry,
potential.
I am
Yeah,
lagging a little bit, but
it's okay. There is potential room to do something intriguing with the idea of maybe some of the pros and cons around AI, which this movie does not wrestle with at all. I agree with you there, Meg. It's more confused than anything else because you have two competing companies here, Encom and Dillinger. And when you really think about it, what makes one more villainous than the other? It's really nothing. They're both after the exact same thing and want to achieve the exact same goal. The only difference is Dillinger, this company, and Evan Peters' character goes about it in more villainous ways. That's really the only difference. It's just the overall attitude with how it's treated. So it just goes to show how confused that this movie ultimately is. And that's not a surprise. The writing is baffling. I agree with you there, JD. I want to give our friend Griffin Schiller over at FilmSpeak a bit of a pat on the back, because he actually mentioned in his Letterboxd review how the writers here are actually not really writers. They're apparently in-house producers with very limited screenwriting experience, and it shows. It absolutely shows.
Well, that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. Like, the movie that I was most reminded of while watching Tron Ares, just the overall flow of it, the sloppiness of it, it reminds me a lot of The Rise of Skywalker. It really does. And I think that's ironic, too, because most of what The Rise of Skywalker was doing was damage control for the reaction of The Last Jedi. So why would they do that here when Disney should ultimately recognize that Tron Legacy has a genuine and passionate and loving following. It's almost like they tried to make this movie only a few years after Legacy came out before it actually had that following. They may have looked at that 49% Metascore for Legacy and thought, oh, this didn't work. We need to course correct this. It just took them 15 years to do that course correction. And by that point, their goal had backfired on them because Tron Legacy actually did grow in stature and become more favorable as time went on. And I think rightfully so. It's just a weird thing that they did by making a movie that really feels like they're trying to course correct something with Legacy or disregard where that movie ended up going. And I think that's kind of hilarious. That's a huge dropping of the ball there.
To me, that is the nucleus of why this film is as atrocious as it is. I was not aware that the writers here were not really writers, but more so producers. That makes a lot of sense to me because when I came out of the theaters, I couldn't initially rant about this because I was with my son Sam, who did enjoy this. So I hope he never watches this. At least not until he's older. But like the next day I had someone ask me about it at work, and thankfully I was able to let some of this off my chest then, but that was my reaction in that moment. Was it felt like a movie made by producers who were unaware that Legacy has garnered this cult following, did not understand why this film was greenlit to begin with, and decided to course correct instead of embracing Legacy and what it is and why it did garner that cult following. It felt like it was made by people completely ignorant of that altogether and just saw the Rotten Tomatoes number, the low box office at the time, and was like, let's do something completely out of left field. And oh, by the way, while we're at it, we'll just completely steal ideas from Legacy to begin with, because the whole permanence code plot point in this film is not too dissimilar from the whole ISO through line in Legacy. But at least in Legacy, there's credence to that idea that the film follows through on, as I mentioned in my opening rant in Cora and why she's important.
Honestly,
to that film.
This movie, Tron Ares specifically, this movie makes more sense if Tron Legacy never happened. Given where this movie goes in its final act, it actually seems to be actively ignoring Legacy while simultaneously acknowledging that it still existed.
That's why I also wanted to note in my opening thoughts that the film needed a set of convictions. Either commit to being a reboot or commit to being a sequel. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
By having it both ways and canonically recognizing the events of Legacy, when you write this film the way you do, it actively contradicts everything that came before it.
Yeah.
So you have two worlds working opposite of each other, and they don't make any sense at all in the same universe, in the same world.
It also doesn't help that the movie's just boring as hell.
It's extremely boring. The characters aren't that compelling.
Yeah.
There's really nothing like even the stylistic choices this film makes. Again, you can cherry pick frames that will look great, but I also feel like so much of the spectacle here is hollow. It leads to nothing. There's really not much action to begin with. I do like the moment of Ares and his crew kind of sneaking into that tower and having
the hacking scene was
the hacking sequence.
That
I
wasn't
think is
bad. Yeah,
that was a good moment of spectacle. Everything we get at the end, into the garbage, utter trash, complete and utter trash. Despite some of the visuals of it, and the sound design is incredible in IMAX, especially.
I can understand that. It's just unfortunate that the cinematographer here is Jeff Chenoweth, who mostly works with David Fincher. He is one of the best working in that specific business, and even he is not given the room to capitalize on how good these visuals are.
And I certainly don't think it's his fault by any stretch of the imagination.
It's the lack of direction. That's really what it is.
There's no direction to this film at all. No,
Even the action pieces when he's directing them, like you can tell that the actors put in a lot of work with like the choreography and stuff. But
Yeah.
even like at that final fight with Ares and Athena, like he's like, I don't know if it's the director, the editor, but like they throw punches and it's about to land and they cut to a different angle. And I'm just like, but I want to see the fight. I don't want to
Yeah,
see all the stuff going on
the
around
blocking
it. I
just
want to
seems
see this
wrong.
actual
It just
fight.
seems wrong.
And I think, yeah, it's so weird. It's
Mhm.
just like I want to see the movie that they did that huge exposition dump in the beginning where it says Sam's gone, these two women took over NCOM. I want to see the movie that they give you in the first like 5 minutes
that's a way more
of
interesting
Aries.
story.
Yeah, it's so much better. And it feels like there is a movie missing between Legacy and Ares. Like we're just
Mhm.
kind of thrown into this, and they think that that little tiny bit in the beginning is enough to like brush us up on where everybody is. But I'm like, okay, now there's this other Dillinger guy and his mom. Where's the other Dillinger guy from the other? I'm just it's so
Yeah.
random.
The
I don't understand it.
the other
It's
thing too, and this maybe goes back to the script once again. I really can't tell you who the main character of this movie is. I know it's called Tron Ares, so it's sort
Yeah,
of
no
billing
idea.
Ares as the main character, but he's not really the main character. Eve is
Mm.
not really the main character, even though most of the action falls around both of them. Evan Peters as the new Dillinger. None of these people are really acting as leads for a story. It's a collection of supporting characters without any interest. That's what it feels like,
Mhm.
and that is sometimes you can pull that off as an ensemble piece, but you have to be really gifted as a director to balance that. And
Mhm.
insert blank director Joachim Roning here. He's certainly not the man to do that.
I mean, you could argue that Ares, Eve, Julian, and Athena all share the same amount of screen time.
I think they do.
And in terms
Yeah.
of storytelling, the percentages are probably about the same.
Yeah.
So you probably are onto something there. And to point to something you guys were talking about in terms of the staging and the action and the thoughtlessness put into this film, one thing that I did find kind of funny, and again, this is a little cinema sinsy, but it stands out more in a movie like this when
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of thoughtlessness. But you get that monologue from Julian early on in the film, and this is in the trailer, so we hear this quite prominently, where he's talking about how Ares is the super intelligent program and he's the next soldier on the battlefield because you can't kill him and he doesn't tire out and he's, replaceable,
Yeah.
which I think is funny because whenever we see these programs fight in the real world, they're out of breath and they're slow.
Yeah.
And the only truthfulness to Julian's, I guess, monologue is that they are expendable or they can reboot themselves, but they don't act like a super intelligent AI indestructible being in the real world. So like I find that hilarious. Again, in a movie that cared about these characters and had an active emotional underbelly, you throw those things in the garbage, you don't care. But in a movie like this where nothing is working, that kind of stuff just stands out all the more. And it's just like, did they put any thought into this? I don't know if they,
Yeah.
maybe there were 8 different directors working on this at the same time. Like that's kind of how it feels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like even with the characterized, like the thematic stuff with like Ares and Athena, it just blows my mind that they would pick Ares as like the lead, and then he's like the good program, and Athena is like the bad one. When if Julian has like this obsession with Greek mythology, you'd think that Athena would be the program that is like the lead, the one that's like turns coat, I guess, at the end.
The new master control. Yeah.
Because Ares is the god of war, Athena is the goddess of wisdom. It just doesn't really make sense. And I when I was
Great point.
it makes no sense. It makes no sense. When I was at Motor City Comic Con this year. Garrett Hedlund was there, and he was kind of talking about Tron Legacy, and people were asking if he was going to be in Ares, and he basically said the only reason why the film is even made is because of Jared Leto. So you just have to think that they didn't want to rename the characters, and they were just like, well, no, Jared Leto has to be the lead. His character Ares has to be the lead, without really giving it a second thought. Like when you brought up that the writers were basically glorified producers, it makes sense because like in the surface level, Athena would not be the bad guy. Athena would not be the one that turns, she might want to take out Ares because Ares is the bad guy, but it's like you don't even need to have that much knowledge about Greek mythology and gods to know that.
No, I'm with you. I think that's a great point, Meg. And I know you mentioned this earlier, that of all of the actors in this movie, the real standout for me is Jodie Turner-Smith. And I think that's because she's talented enough to overcompensate the lack of material that she is given. And sadly, I just don't think any of the other actors are. And I like a lot of these actors. You know that a movie is in trouble when Jared Leto's not giving the worst performance here. And I don't really like him here. There are times where he has a few moments of deadpan humor that I did find somewhat effective, but when he's tasked with actually delivering a bit of an arc for Ares, the material just doesn't give him anything to work with. I love Greta Lee, but I think she's really bad here. And I think that's just sadly the material just not allowing her to take advantage of that. She's a glorified exposition dumper for much of the movie. They treat her like a MacGuffin, and pretty much everyone here is treated like a MacGuffin. And I found that just unfortunate when you have this kind of talent here. It's wildly insincere and annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to approach these performances, to be perfectly honest. I don't think anyone is particularly good here. I don't think
it's not their fault, though.
Is egregious, and I say this maybe a little begrudgingly. I would also include Leto in that. I don't think he's actively hurting this film performatively. The fact that he's completely one note kind of helps his performance a little bit. It's not compelling necessarily, but it is a flat performance and one that's necessarily flat. I mean, of the rest of these, maybe this is where we'll disagree a little bit. I think Greta Lee is maybe the one that stands out the most to me, but the material doesn't support anyone here at all. So it's hard to judge these performances because they're not giving anything. They're giving nothing to work with. And I don't know how, as an actor, as a performer, how you're supposed to manage your way out of this. And, and that really strikes a chord because I think about many of the conversations we've had just this last summer when we're talking about, for example, the latest Jurassic World movie, which I don't love particularly.
Yeah.
But there are moments in that film where I think the performances shine incredibly well. Same thing with Superman. I thought some of the performances were really great there. So like even in blockbusters that aren't necessarily great, it feels like I can always take nuggets from them that I can talk about in some sort of positive light, especially when it comes to the performances, because this is a great cast on its own terms.
Absolutely.
In a microcosm, this is a really great cast. And there's nothing here performatively to chew on. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all.
It's not their fault. When I say I don't like Greta Lee in this movie, it's not her. It's her performance, but it's not her fault that the performance is a problem. And that it doesn't disregard her talents as an actress, because she is absolutely more than capable of giving performances that rank among the best of their respective years. We've seen her do that before. And this doesn't take away from that. If anything, it's more of it's once again a reflection of what's going on behind the camera that completely botches this thing.
Yeah, it's not good.
Gillian Anderson too is just like, anytime she's in the film, I'm like, oh God, I love her so much. She's so good at what she does. But then they give her nothing. She gets absolutely nothing to do in this film other than just be like a glorified babysitter for her freak AI son. And I just don't understand, if you're gonna cast, like, that's the first thing I said in my review, was like, the most frustrating part about this film is that it relatively has a stacked cast that they do nothing with. Jared Leto was trying to do like a good impression of like a Terminator or something, but it just falls completely flat. It falls completely flat because the script, the humor is so awkward and the dialogue is so clunky that you don't know if you're supposed to laugh at some of these more awkward moments, or if it's genuinely supposed to feel awkward because he's like a bot, or if he's just a bad actor. I don't, there's so many
Yeah.
variables.
That is how you hide a bad actor.
Yeah, make him play a
like,
robot.
Like Ares, I think the character has to come out flat given the way it's portrayed and the way it's written. So I don't think he's doing anything outside of what is called for with the character, but it is dull. There's nothing all vibrant about the performance at all.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't need to be, but again, that's indicative of the writing and how they don't give these characters anything to chew on, including Ares. There's a way to still write that character in this dull way. And honestly, now that we're talking about it out loud, it is maybe even more so problematic than I came into this conversation thinking, because that is the character that has this human evolution, that by the end, he's the one that has this epiphany that what Julian is doing is anti-human. He's the one that feels more AI, and I'm starting to understand what this humanity thing is all about, but the performance doesn't match that evolution. It still stays pretty dry all the way through. So yeah, I guess if I'm going to criticize the performance, it doesn't match that evolution in the storytelling whatsoever.
I agree.
And
especially paired with Jodie Turner-Smith, when they share so many scenes together, I think her performance shows that she's finding humanity in just a different way through like rage and anger. And she does it in such a better way than Jared Leto does, where his just comes across as, especially those scenes where he's in a car with Greta Lee's character Eve. Those scenes, it was like nails on a chalkboard to me. Like, he was just like telling her about all this stuff he found out about her life and how he's like learning to be human kind of, and through her experiences. And that scene, that was probably my least favorite scene, because they're trying to push this weird chemistry between the two that just does not work, especially when you have Sam and Cora, who had such amazing chemistry, and then you go to this pairing of Eve and Ares, and it's just, it completely falls flat. And maybe that's the point, that at the end he leaves to find a higher purpose, go find Sam and Cora, whatever, and she's just there to like deal with the aftermath. But it's just there's so many like areas that the film can go, but it never goes in any direction that makes sense, especially with the script that's just nothing. But yeah, I think that the character Athena, if you swapped Athena and Ares, I think the film would have been at least a little bit better.
It certainly would have made a lot more sense narratively. And I agree with you that the scene in the car between Ares and Eve, that needs to work, because that's such a vital catalyst to this film.
It's awkward.
Thematically and
awkward.
narratively, because that's the moment where Eve starts to recognize that quote unquote humanity in Ares as well, and him understanding his purpose. And it's such a quote unquote big moment in this film, that reveal, and it's handled with the execution of, I feel like my 9-year-old son could have filmed that better. Could have made that scene work better.
I think he could have. I've seen his movies and they're more competent.
Just absolutely no competence at all. And it just goes back to everything I said earlier. I don't understand the vision to this film. It makes no sense what they're trying to accomplish here. And then to add on that coda at the end, oh yeah, Sam and Cora do exist in this world. And again, given the ending of Legacy, how she is not a big part of this movie and a big part of this world already, it is mind-boggling.
And
mind-boggling.
I think Disney knew that they had, at a certain point when this movie was nearing completion, I think they knew they had a bit of a dud on their hands.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say something that I think is going to get a lot of pushback. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. I think the Nine Inch Nails score is pretty bad. I don't think it works here.
No.
And I love Nine Inch Nails. I think it mostly works in isolation. But I think in the context of the movie, it's kind of an earsore. I think it's overtly oppressive and just never ends, and it just all sounds very samey. And if anything, it's more to do with the editing, and it doesn't sequence with the music very well at all, which is not what I could say about Tron Legacy and how the editing of that movie really worked in parallel and conjunction with Daft Punk's music. And they also offered a lot of variation to match the tones of the movie. If anything, this is just one giant lengthy 2-hour technological noise drone is basically what the music kind of feels like to me. And Trent Reznor has kind of admitted this in an interview not too long ago. He was asked why this movie is scored by Nine Inch Nails and not by quote unquote Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, even though it is technically the same people. And he more or less said it would have been more marketable to put this as Nine Inch Nails. So if anything, it does make it feel like it's a last-ditch effort from Disney to put some type of marketing spin and some type of credibility on this movie. And honestly, I felt those seams. When I heard the music in context with the movie, it felt so try-hard to me, and it just didn't work. And I say that as a Nine Inch Nails fan. That bummed me out. That really bummed me out.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did
there's like
not
a
expect
big
to hear that.
section. There's a big section of the film, I feel like, that doesn't have any score for like a lengthy period of time. And I feel like it's the scene where they go back to NCOM and they try to find the permanence code another way right before they go into the original grid. I feel like there's a pretty substantial amount of time that there's just no score at all, which is kind of confusing to me because the score is so prominent at the beginning and the end of the film that there's somewhere in the middle that it's gone, and you notice it because you're like, okay, this is what I came here for. Like, where is it? And I really love the score. It's probably my favorite part about the film, but
Okay.
I also listened to it before I watched the movie, which I usually don't try to do, but I watched it beforehand, so I got like into the score itself. But I did a few tracks I kind of changed, like I'm a kind of iffy on now after seeing the score, the film, the scenes that they're paired with, because I'm like, oh, I don't really like this one now because that was the car scene and it was a horrible scene.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing.
But yeah.
I probably would like it as if I listened to it as purely a Nine Inch Nails album. I think there's more I could appreciate out of it. I tend to judge scores more and how they work in conjunction with the movie that they're serving, and I think that's the aspect of Nine Inch Nails' music that kind of lacks for me. I just think the merriment with the way that this movie is constructed and edited, I don't see the synergy. I just don't see it there.
Okay. I will disagree with that. That's the only compelling aspect to this film to me. And honestly, I think that's the only thing that makes it watchable is the score and how it gives this film any sort of vibe. I don't think it's almost disingenuous to call this a movie. It doesn't really function as a movie.
No, I agree with that.
But it does, at least I would argue, function as a vibe. Because again, I genuinely love the sound design here, at least in IMAX. I don't know if it'll translate at home, but in IMAX, it was pretty great. Visually, I think it's striking enough, even if the film doesn't fully utilize those visuals. I still think it looks great. So like, I think as a vibe, it's at least serviceable in that regard. You can tune out the characters, you can tune out the story, just vibe with the visuals and the sound design and the score, and that can be enough. And honestly, that was the only thing that got me through, because I think everything else here is incredibly feckless. But that element of the film, I do think, is serviceable. That I think works enough.
Okay.
It's not enough to save the movie by any stretch of the imagination. But if you just want to vibe with the film, I can understand that. I think the film does a good job in that regard.
Meh.
That's it. That's it.
I don't know. This is slowly becoming my least favorite movie of the year, and I say that as
Oh, it's
someone
not good.
no, I say that as someone who said the movie The Monkey, the Osgood Perkins movie, was probably the worst movie I've seen in the past 10 years, and I think I might like this one less than that. So that means 2025 is on to a great start with giving me two films that I think are among my least favorites that I've seen in the past decade. So already by default, I don't like this year very much just because of these two movies. I hate to sound cynical. I really do. I don't like to, project myself in that way, and I rarely do that. But these two movies and now Tron Ares are bringing out the worst in me. I hate when movies do that.
Yeah, I definitely prefer this to The Monkey for whatever that's worth. In fact, it might not even be close in that regard. And I am not a big fan of this film at all. I don't know if I've made that clear. But I don't take anything away from The Monkey. I could put a frame of this film on my wall. I will continue to listen to that Nine Inch Nails score. I think it's great. I think it works wonderfully here. There are a few things, again, emphasize a few, that I can walk away with from the film. Again, going to be kind and call it that. But there are a few. I can't say that about The Monkey.
Yeah,
like at all.
They're in the same camp for me. I can't find anything in this movie that I liked.
Okay.
I feel like for me, I have it on my. For me, I have it on my. Let's see. Let me open up my letterbox list here. But I have a running list of every movie I've seen in 2025 that's released this year, and I have it between. Funnily enough, I have it between The Monkey, Smashing Machine, then Tron Ares, then Superman. So it's kind of like in the middle of my list. I feel like I kind of feel the same way about this movie as I do with Superman, where one excels in the score and the visuals and the other excels in the performances, but I hate the visuals of Superman. I hate the score of Superman, but I
those
love
are fighting words, Meg.
I know.
The score to Superman might be my favorite of the year. I'm not even kidding.
I'm actually kind of with Meg. I did not really care for the score of Superman either.
Yeah, I feel like it just tries to hit nostalgic cues for people to point and clap at, kind of. That's just me. But I like the performances in Superman more than I like the performances in Tron Ares, but they kind of just feel like the same kind of movie to me. They're not really doing much for me. But I will say, I think at the end of the day, I feel like at the end of the day, it's easy enough to enjoy like Tron Ares for its visuals and its score, but that's really about it. I feel like it doesn't say anything about the potential risks that AI and assimilating like AI robots into our life could do. Not saying that it needs to like reinvent like this sci-fi AI wheel for films, but I feel like we're at a point in our own history where it's either make or break. Like AI is either going to take over or whatever it's going to do. And I'm just kind of exhausted of a nothing or a neutral stance from these big corporations. So I am just kind of left just annoyed with it, if anything. Like, same. I know I've basically already forgotten about the movie, other than I made sure to write some stuff down for this, but I haven't thought about it since I saw it like last Tuesday or so. I can't care.
And again, I think the irony of that, and again, going back to the vacuousness of the writing, and specifically in terms of what you're talking about with AI, is that Quora represented this idea, at least from Flynn's perspective, that she, as this program, would progress our world medically, technologically, philosophically, from a religious perspective. It would reshift everything we know about the world. And it would give way for, again, in theory, for whatever this quote unquote sequel would be, to explore those ideas in this transcendent way. And you could certainly include AI into that conversation, given where the technology piece has gone since Legacy came out. And ignoring her and then giving us Ares, which, to your point, and I agree with, thematically, narratively, extremely hollow. The character of Ares and what he represents here means absolutely nothing to the world of Tron, will not impact this world in any way, shape, or form. He's just an AI program that now has this permanence code, so he can't be deleted in the real world. That doesn't mean anything to the world as they have established it. Whereas, on the other hand, Quora, she represents vital change. So we go to nothing when you have all this rich vastness sitting at your fingertips. Why you choose to not examine that, again, dumb. That's the only word that comes to mind. It is extremely stupid.
I think it's dumb and ignorant because Disney clearly doesn't understand the impact that Tron Legacy has had with its fan base and how well it's aged. Like even the third act of Tron Ares here, and it involves what I think is probably the most egregious use of nostalgia baiting that I think I've ever seen in a movie in quite some time. It also makes no sense for that sequence to look like that, given some of the sequences that we saw in Tron Legacy. Like there's no consistency there. This movie feels as if it's trying to desperately and retroactively nullify Tron Legacy.
Yeah,
I can't really tell what it's doing. So if there's any message to this entire conversation that we just had, it's that Tron Legacy rules. That movie is really good and honestly has gotten better with time.
And I'm glad that you brought that up too, Brendan, because we haven't really mentioned the Kevin Flynn scene in this film in Ares.
Right. Yeah.
Probably my least favorite moment of the film.
It's
I
so
don't
confusing.
even know if it's particularly close.
And you know, it pisses me off that they showed it before you even see the film, because the entire time you're watching the movie, you're anticipating that moment. You're like, okay, when is he going to show up? When are we going back to the original grid? Instead of it being a surprise, which if it was a surprise, I feel like it wouldn't have felt so icky and weird and just nothing. But the whole time you're sitting here, you're like, okay, where's this movie even going to? Where's it going so that we can go to the original grid? And then it's just like Jeff Bridges is just doing, like, he's like, yeah, man, cool, man. And it's like, okay, did we really need to have him in there just for some catchphrases?
I think I saw this on Twitter, JD. I think you were having an exchange with someone on Twitter. I think it was our writer and good friend Charlie Chavla, who made the great point that if you see this movie as really more of a sequel to the original Tron, then it all of a sudden makes more sense. And that's kind of annoying. Like that's really annoying if that's what they went for.
And I do think he makes a great point. The problem is the film canonically recognizes legacy. So
it does.
You can't.
Yeah. You
can't just ignore legacy altogether. The film very adamantly recognizes legacy as part of the story here, especially at the end.
Yeah.
Especially at the end. Get out of my face with that coda. Absolutely, absolute nonsense. And that moment with Flynn, again, is another moment of thoughtlessness because it contradicts so much of what we already know about this world, given what legacy does.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here? Like it just, again, a lot of it just feels in like, I was going to say in service of nostalgia, in service of, I don't know, maybe nothing, in service of nothing, because I truly don't know what this film was trying to accomplish. I've never sat here and been this at a loss for words. I'm stunned at how dumb this movie is.
That's why I hate it. That's why I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still enjoy parts of it. I'm not like I don't hate it, but I just wish I liked it more than I did because, you know, the first like 20 minutes I was really into it, you know, especially with that opening and then the score is just going. And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, maybe I'm actually going to like this. But then like the entire middle and end happened and I'm just like, oh, geez.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the next time I bring up movies about AI that on its face aren't the greatest of movies, all of a sudden I feel like I have to bump them up like an extra star after seeing this one. Like I don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. This movie made me retroactively go back and think about something like Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And it's like, actually, maybe that's
Maybe
actually
that's
a good
another-
movie now.
That could be a good, because I didn't like that movie, but after seeing this one, it's like, well, it could have been worse. It really could have been. Yeah. All of a sudden, iRobot is looking like a masterpiece in my mind now. I already loved that movie, but comparatively, it might as well be Citizen Kane.
Dang.
Well, I mean, Spielberg already made AI, so you already have the Citizen Kane
Well, we
of
got,
AI
we already,
movies.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Again, in comparison to this, though,
Yeah.
look, I will still go to bat for the soundtrack here, though.
Yeah.
That's the one thing
I
we'll just
really wish I
always
could.
disagree on. I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, I really wish I could. I love Nine Inch Nails. I will say that I do love Nine Inch Nails. They're one of my favorite bands in that particular genre.
Yeah, I think it's good here. Did you know they also cameo as the fighter pilots here?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the movie. I missed it in the movie, but I did hear that they were in this.
Yeah. And look, I can't criticize it. This is I guess maybe Disney gets a pass here because every movie does this.
Mhm.
And it makes me want to swear every single time. it's so dumb when you include F-35s or F-22s in the ways that movies do. It makes it's just so dumb. Like those planes can accomplish what they do here 30 miles away. 30 miles, like they don't even have to get close.
I love when JD gets full on Air Force
Drives
nerd.
me nuts. Yeah, that's I will consider that a nitpick because again, lots of movies. Transformers does this. Well, yeah.
Honestly, but you know a movie is not working when you start to really cinema sins the hell out of it. Because that's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
we don't like to do, right, JD?
Oh
We
no, I
never
hate
really
it.
do.
I actively refuse it as
But
much
you
as
know
I
a-
can. Yeah.
But you know a movie is bad when you almost feel like you have to talk about those things because it's
Yeah.
actually more interesting to talk about those very silly criticisms because the rest of the movie just isn't
Yeah.
interesting to talk about. Like that's a problem.
Yeah. And that's why I highlight some of that stuff here. You know, like
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, some of the choreographed fighting here, and that includes the programs. Like that's all silly nonsense. And look, and if the movie was good, I overlook those things. You
Right.
know, I can easily do that with Bayformers, especially Dark of the Moon. There's a lot of stupid stuff like that in Dark of the Moon, but I don't care. Like I don't think about it in that.
That's actually a fun movie.
Because I think that's a genuinely good movie. Same thing with iRobot or any other blockbuster. Superman, because I liked that film a lot. So like, yeah, I mean, every blockbuster has their stupid little silly stuff that you could cinema sins to death. But I don't care most of the time. It only becomes irksome when you're so totally disengaged that then every little thing just annoys the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm.
That was certainly the case with Aries for me.
Yeah.
For sure.
I can
Yeah.
agree with that.
All right. I think I've ranted enough. I don't know if you guys have anything
I
else to say
love
here.
Mad JD. I really do.
I think it's rare that we get to this point. But man, I love Legacy so much.
Me too.
And I cannot believe, like, I mean, maybe this film exists just because of Jared Leto and his producing company here. It just feels like the only appeal here, especially financially, is the Legacy cult.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth are you trying to alienate them here? We'll never understand that.
I don't get
You
it.
know, it's all because they still haven't shipped me my Tron Legacy Steelbook yet.
It
is
begins
vengeance,
there.
isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They were waiting to see how I felt about this one,
Yeah.
and now they're going to listen to this and be like, "Oh, well, we can't send it now. Let's just tell her we're
Yeah.
out of stock."
I will say as a final note, because I saw this at the press screening with my son Sam, as I noted earlier, and when you get out of those movies, sometimes the guys that are holding it there for the studios, when you get out, they'll ask for your thoughts. They want to know your thoughts, and they write them down and keep notes for the studio. And Sam was right next to me.
No.
And also there were other critics around. I don't know what they thought of it. I didn't know what to tell the guy. I kind of panicked. It's the first time in that moment I've ever panicked because I didn't want to sit there in front of Sam, be like, "Oh, this film is dog shit," actually, which is what I wanted to say. And so I just kind of, I said, "Oh." I told him I need to think about it, is what I said. I need to sit on it. And I grabbed Sam and I walked out as fast as I possibly could. Got out of there quick.
I'm pretty sure I was like, oh, they asked me, how it is. And I was like, oh, it was fine. I was like, I really like the score and the visuals. I was like, but it's kind of boring. And then I just beelined it for the door.
Yeah.
What did you tell Sam, Katie, as you were leaving?
I didn't tell him anything. I asked him if he liked it. He told me all the stuff he liked about it. And I was just like, good. I'm glad that you had a good time.
And that was the end of the conversation?
That was it. He didn't ask me. If he did ask me, I would have lied. It would have been one of those moments where you white lie yourself out of a situation.
Well, I guess like that must mean he may have enjoyed himself, but he probably didn't love it like he has loved other movies from this year if he's not going to actively ask for your opinion.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. He hasn't said anything. I'm not going to rain on his parade. But I mean, I will say this. He hasn't, like when he came on the show here to talk about Jurassic World, for example, and he was like stoked about it, or Superman, or even Lilo and Stitch. Like in the following days, like there was still a bit of an overglow.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't get that with this one.
Okay.
Now, some of that could be, to be fair, he's still very much K-pop Demon Hunter craze. And that could just be stealing the thunder of Tron Ares. So I don't know.
Well,
but he hasn't had that same overflow. That's for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
So who knows?
I was curious about that.
Has he seen Tron Legacy?
He has. He loves it. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Loves it a lot.
Good.
Yeah, one of my favorite, and I know that we're just kind of we're done with Ares, so we're just gonna.
Oh yeah, we can't talk about this anymore. Yeah, I'm bored of it.
But one of back in March, we took the kids to Disney World, and at Magic Kingdom they have a new Tron ride. I think I told this story the weekend we got back because I was telling Brendan how I had this moment with Sam, and we had seen the film and loved it. Had this great reaction. I think I mentioned earlier that I got emotional thinking about it, like that midnight special cut that you get there.
Yeah.
So we watched the movie. We go to Disney after seeing the movie, and we go on that ride for the first time. And I mean, if you're gonna go to Magic Kingdom, there's a lot of fun things to do there. The first thing you got to this Tron ride at Magic Kingdom is genuinely one of the best roller coasters I've ever been on.
That's awesome.
And they have the Legacy score playing there as you're kind of going through the lines. It's pretty badass. And you get on the ride and it starts, it's on the bike, right? So you're leaning forward and it goes 0 to 100 in like half a second or whatever it is. But you're flying through and it starts indoors and then you fly outside, like you're going outside on the track.
Yeah.
And you're like side by side. So like Sam's on my left and we're getting ready to go. And we just kind of look at each other when we take off. And it was just this incredible bonding moment. And that score is kind of humming as you go through the ride. And I was like in tears, like literally in tears, because I got the score playing. I got that Daft score in my ears. I got Sam screaming his head off next to me, and it's this movie that I love. The whole experience was just phenomenal. So like I had already loved the film, and now it's become like this profound thing in my life. So that every time I go on that ride, like that's just all I think about.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
That's amazing, man.
So
I remember
anyway.
I had when I was a kid, we couldn't really afford new DVDs, and my dad had a friend that would burn DVDs.
Oh, okay.
And so one year I got he knew how much I loved Tron, so he got me Tron Legacy on a burn DVD, and I still have it to this day because that's the only way I could watch the movie after after my mom was sick of taking me to the movie theater.
And
that's
still
the
now
only
because they won't get you the Steelbook.
Exactly. But yeah, I have such a soft spot for that movie, and that's why I feel like I'm also just kind of just so bummed out that this one is the way it is. Because like that score, I would listen to in college every day. I was listening to that score, studying. Even in high school, on the way home from school on the bus, I was listening to that soundtrack. And maybe it's just me putting a little bit too much of my nostalgic feelings into the film, but yeah, I just love Legacy so much that I'm just kind of so bummed.
A group of college friends and myself, we one day while we were at college, we decided to do a Saturday night out. Instead of going to like a bar or go to a party, we decided to go play laser tag. And at this specific laser tag facility, it allowed you to pick your music you wanted to play during it. And someone decided to play the Tron Legacy soundtrack, and it was like the most perfect fitting thing you could imagine. And it even made me appreciate that more, just given that. I thought it was really quite cute.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end on.
Legacy rules, Ares drools.
Legacy rules.
Yeah.
This is the closest we've ever gotten to the way Star Wars fans treated the Rian Johnson movie, but
Yeah.
I think we make a good argument here. I don't think it's exactly the same, and I'm also not going to go on Twitter and personally trash Joachim Ronning, or however you say his name, but
Ares, the director.
Ares. Like, and again,
Yeah.
I still wonder if he actually directed this or if they just slapped his name on as directed by. It could be one of those.
For his
situations.
sake, I hope they just slapped his name on it.
Yeah, it probably is one of those situations. Either way, I'm not personally attacking anyone, except maybe Disney itself as a corporation, because screw them. This is
The
terrible.
producers / writers here.
Yeah. Yeah, this is bad. And look, I think we at least make a good argument in this case. At least we tried
Yes.
to.
Not good, Bob.
At any rate, thanks, Meg, for being here. Really do appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can we find you online? Where can we follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me basically anywhere on social media as Wonder Meg. You can find my writing at InSession, films.com, wonderwatchlist.com, geekvibesnation.com. And also, yeah, like you said, Ares drools, Legacy rules, and also like we're pro user in this house. We are pro user.
Pro user.
Down with the
Absolutely.
programs.
Exactly.
Well said. Well said.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Be sure to go and give Meg a follow. Check out all of her awesome work. We really do appreciate you, Meg. You're one of the best. So thanks again for being here. Stay tuned. We will have another review coming this week as well. We're going to be talking about Channing Tatum in Roofman. So you can be on the lookout for that. And then episode 658, I believe, is the number we're at this
I think
week.
it is.
I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I think so.
but
I always
that's it.
forget, but I assume you're always right.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about performances by stand-up comedians, I believe is the topic.
Yeah,
And I'm
maybe
very
comedians
excited for
more
this.
broadly speaking, but definitely our favorite performances from comedians, stand-up comedians, and how surprising some of those performances ultimately were.
Yeah. So I look forward to getting into that. And also, speaking of tangents and rants, maybe rant is a bit of a strong word, but I have a lot of thoughts on Indy from Good Boy.
Ooh.
I am continuing my Oscar campaign for Indy the dog. So if you have strong feelings about that, be sure to join us on the show, whether you agree or disagree with me. Let's talk about it.
I love JD's passion.
We're going to be getting into that as well.
JD's going to inspire me to start a new band. I'm going to call it like Canine Passion or something like that.
Oh, boy. There are also personal reasons for this as well. I'll talk about that on the show this week.
Okay.
So you can be on the lookout. That's all I'm saying.
All
there might
right,
be
can't wait
some
to hear it.
emotions involved. It's going to be a great time. So episode 658, be on the lookout for that. New Women in Session at the end of the week as well. And a new Chasing the Gold coming this week. So lots happening as always. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks, Meg, for being here once again. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time on the In Session Film Podcast.